the blood on that pad wasn't hers. And that one mistake is the reason 9 people ended up dead. That's not even the craziest part. This is Sijjin, 2023's brutal Indonesian horror remake. And by the time you reach the ending, everything you thought you understood gets turned upside down. But trust me, the clues were there from the very beginning. Before we jump in, if you're new here, hit subscribe. I break down horror movies like this all the time, and you definitely don't want to miss the next one. All right, let's get into the movie. So the movie opens by laying out the rules. In this world, if you cheat, your name gets written into the Book of Sijjin, and from there, it's a straight path to Jahannam. That's basically the entire mythology of the film. We kick things off with a shaman named Iskan performing this black magic ritual. Buffalo intestines, buffalo eyes, the whole thing is seriously disturbing. And after chanting a series of incantations, he marks a young woman as part of the ritual. Then the movie cuts to 2 sisters, Irma and Wulan, waiting outside his place for their turn. The second they walk in, you can already tell Wulan is absolutely terrified. Irma, though, has a completely different reason for being there. She tells Iskan she's in love with a man named Lang, and she wants the ritual to make sure they end up married. Just one problem. Lang is her cousin, her mother's sister's son. So Iskan doesn't even hesitate. He tells her absolutely not. And just to make sure the message sinks in, he briefly possesses Wulan. She suddenly speaks with his voice, repeating the exact same warning. Safe to say, that gets the message across. Irma leaves, and for the moment, she backs off. Then the movie jumps forward 12 years. Irma, Wulan, and their mother Farah head over to Lang's house. By now, Lang is married. His wife is Nisa, and together they have a daughter named Sofia, who's honestly one of the sweetest kid characters in the entire movie. They're all there for Sofia's birthday. One important detail, Sofia is blind, and Lang's mother, Tete, is completely bedridden. She can't move, and she can't speak. During the party, the movie quietly reveals something huge. Irma and Lang have been having an affair. Nisa already knows about it. Lang is trying to end things because he knows it's wrong, but Irma refuses to let go. She's still completely obsessed with him. Then she says something that honestly caught me off guard. She tells Lang, "You married someone else? Fine, but your daughter is disabled and now I'm pregnant." The implication is obvious. Their child wouldn't have those same problems. That's an incredibly cruel thing to say, especially about a little kid. And right there, you realize just how warped Irma's thinking has become. To be fair, though, she isn't actually cruel to Nisa or Sofia face to face. She even seems to genuinely care about Sofia. It's Lang she's completely consumed by. She goes home, keeps calling him, and every single time he ignores her. Wulan knows exactly what's going on, and she tries to talk some sense into her sister. Instead, it turns into an argument. Years earlier, Irma and Lang had promised they'd always be together, but according to Irma, her mother forced him to marry Nisa instead. Lang eventually accepted it. Irma never did. And now she's carrying his child. Desperate, she tracks him down at work and begs him to stay with her. He refuses. The argument turns physical. He pushes her, and she loses the baby. Lang rushes her to the hospital, but afterward, he makes himself completely clear. It's over. Stay away from him and stay away from his family. And that's the moment everything inside Irma finally breaks. On the way home, something strange happens. Lang runs into an ustad, a religious teacher, who hands him a prayer set as a gift for Sofia. But before leaving, he gives Lang a warning. He says the family hasn't prayed or even been to the mosque for far too long, and if they don't return to their faith soon, something bad is going to happen. That night, Lang has a nightmare. He sees Sofia after tearing out her own eyes. Then she calmly looks at him and asks him to bring her another pair as a gift next time. He wakes up instantly, completely shaken, and if you've seen Sijjin or the Dabe movies before, you already know how this works. The things that appear in dreams don't usually stay there. Still disturbed, Lang walks over to Sofia's room and quietly sits beside her while she sleeps. That's when the movie reveals something heartbreaking. Back when Nisa was pregnant, there were serious complications, but Lang, emotionally checked out at the time, never took her to the hospital, and because of that, Sofia lost her eyesight. It's a really quiet scene, but it hits hard. When Nisa gets discharged from the hospital, things only get worse. Irma keeps trying to reach Lang, but this time, he completely loses his patience. He snaps at her, says some genuinely cruel things, and that's the moment Irma finally crosses the line. She goes back to Iskan and tells him she'll do whatever it takes to make Lang hers. She doesn't care about the price anymore. In her mind, she's already lost everything, so there's nothing left to lose. Iskan warns her this kind of ritual is incredibly dangerous, but Irma offers every piece of jewelry she owns, even Wulan's. His mother tells him to accept the job, and he does. Iskan explains that there are different kinds of evil Jinn. The one they're calling is a Nazar Jinn, a spirit that's known for making deadly bargains. Then he lists everything the ritual requires: a freshly buried corpse's shin bone, wrapped in buffalo intestines, covered in sacred incantations. But that's still not enough. He also needs something that belongs to Nisa, a photograph and either her hair, blood, or fingernails. Asks the obvious question: what exactly will this ritual do? Over the course of 5 nights, Nisa and every single one of her blood relatives will die, one by one. Irma hesitates just for a moment. She's thinking about Sofia, but Iskan shuts that down immediately. He basically tells her, nobody cared about your child, don't worry about hers. And after hearing that, Irma commits completely. The next day, she sneaks into Nisa's bathroom, steals hair from a comb, and takes a used sanitary pad from the trash. As she's leaving, she runs into Sofia. For just a second, you can see guilt on Irma's face. Honestly, I think that was her last chance to walk away. She doesn't. Instead, she runs into Lang. He tells her one last time to stay away from him and stay away from his family. That was the final push. There was no turning back anymore. She brings everything to Iskan, who's already prepared the ritual. There's a severed foot from a freshly buried corpse, buffalo remains, everything waiting. Then Iskan notices the blood on the sanitary pad. And instead of seeing it as a problem, he smiles. He tells Irma blood creates a much stronger spiritual connection than hair ever could, which means the ritual just became even more powerful. Then it begins. He smears the blood across Nisa's photograph, writes the incantations onto the bone, tears the photograph apart, wraps the bone inside the buffalo intestines, and starts praying to the ruling Jinn. The ritual becomes so violent, the entire house starts shaking. When it's finally over, he flushes what's left of the photograph, feeds pieces of it to dogs, and calmly tells Irma, starting tonight, Nisa is about to experience the 5 worst nights of her life. And when those 5 nights are over, her entire bloodline will be gone. Night 1 begins almost immediately. Nisa is praying when terrifying visions suddenly surround her. Bloody buffalo remains, torn flesh, screams echoing through the house. Lang rushes in, but there's nothing there. He assumes she's exhausted, tells her to get some sleep, and walks away. Later that night, things become even stranger. Nisa starts staring at Sofia's doll. Then, almost like she's under someone else's control, she begins eating her own hair, and even Sofia's. Moments later, she throws everything back up. She desperately tries to convince Lang that something is terribly wrong. And that's exactly what makes the curse even more dangerous. Night 2, and the curse starts spreading in ways nobody expected. Woolan notices all of the family's jewelry is missing and immediately figures out Irma gave it to Iskan. They argue, but then something unexpected happens. Irma starts seeing things too. She suddenly sees Woolan's dead body, panics and screams. Woolan rushes over, but of course there's nothing there. That's when Irma realizes something isn't right. She performed the ritual on Nisa, so why is she being haunted too? Either Iskan wasn't telling her everything, or something has gone completely wrong. Meanwhile, Nisa is praying when she suddenly starts choking. Seconds later, she vomits up an entire jar full of worms. She keeps the jar, hoping someone will finally believe her. Desperate, she goes to Tete for help. Instead, the curse takes control again. She almost attacks her before snapping back to reality, completely horrified by what she's nearly done. The worst part? She doesn't remember any of it. Later, she checks the jar again. The worms are gone. Then, something even more disturbing happens. Tete, who hasn't been able to walk this entire movie, suddenly stands up. She slowly walks into the kitchen and pours boiling food all over herself. By the time Nisa finds her, it's already too late. Night 3. The family gathers for Tete's funeral. Even Irma shows up. During the ceremony, Nisa suddenly becomes possessed again and throws the coffin across the room. Chaos breaks out immediately. The Ustad performs a quick exorcism, just enough to calm her down. But by now, he already knows someone summoned this Jinn on purpose. That night, Lang finally starts believing something supernatural is happening. After another nightmare, he apologizes to Nisa for ignoring her. Then he goes straight to the Ustad. The Ustad confirms his worst fear. The Jinn is real. Someone deliberately sent it after their family, but he also reminds Lang, no evil is greater than God. He gives him holy water and tells him to place it on Nisa's forehead before prayer. Back at home, Tete's spirit starts haunting Nisa again. Lang arrives just in time, holds her, and for the first time, you really feel how alone he is. Almost everyone around him is gone. He places the holy water on her forehead. She screams in agony. Then he turns on a recording of prayers, hoping it'll keep the Jinn away. But somehow, the recording suddenly stops, and the possession comes right back. Night 4. This time, the curse reaches Farah. She starts hearing voices, completely loses control, tears apart the house, eats broken glass, and dies. But here's where something doesn't add up. Iskan said Nisa's blood relatives were supposed to die. That's not what's happening. The victims are coming from somewhere else. Something about the ritual is completely wrong. At Farah's funeral, Woolan finally confronts Irma. This time, Irma admits everything. She confesses she summoned the Jinn, but insists this wasn't supposed to happen. She promises she'll find a way to stop it. Meanwhile, Nisa's condition keeps getting worse. The moment she hears the call to prayer, she panics and tries to hang herself. Lang reaches her just in time. Soon after, the Ustad arrives. He tells them tonight ends it. They're taking Nisa to the prayer hall behind the mosque, where they'll perform a full exorcism. Before they leave, the Ustad gives Lang one final reminder. No matter how powerful the Jinn is, if they lose their faith, they've already lost. Then, Irma and Woolan arrive. And for the first time, Irma finally admits to Lang she's the one who started all of this. Lang explodes with anger, and the confrontation finally begins. Night 5, the final night. Irma rushes toward Iskan's house, hoping he can still stop the curse. But before she gets there, Woolan attacks her. Except this isn't really Woolan anymore. She's completely possessed. She tells Irma, "You're dying tonight too." Then, in one of the movie's most disturbing moments, she climbs a tree, throws herself off, and dies instantly. Completely terrified, Irma runs to find Izkan. She desperately needs him, but he's nowhere to be found. At the same time, the exorcism at the mosque is falling apart. Nothing the Ustad tries seems to work. Nisa becomes more violent than ever, attacking everyone around her. Meanwhile, the curse finally catches up to Irma. It tears through her body, and she dies. Honestly, it feels inevitable. She spent the entire movie trying to destroy someone else's family, and in the end, she destroys her own. Nisa turns on Lang next and almost kills him before the Ustad manages to stop her. But here's the thing, none of that is actually the biggest reveal. Because the movie has been hiding the real answer the entire time. There was never a Jinn inside Nisa. It was inside Sofia. Remember the sanitary pad Irma stole from the bathroom? She assumed it belonged to Nisa. It didn't. It was Sofia's. She had just gotten her first period. The hair Irma collected was Sofia's too. So even though Izkan used Nisa's photograph, the ritual actually attached itself to Sofia. Suddenly, everything makes sense. The curse wasn't targeting Nisa's blood relatives at all. It was targeting Sofia's. That's why Irma, Wulan, and everyone connected to her family line became the victims. And once you know the truth, you realize Sofia was present during almost every major incident, always present, just quietly sitting in the background. The movie never hides her. It simply lets you assume the wrong thing. Eventually, Sofia turns on Lang too, but this time, the Ustad finishes the prayers before it's too late and finally drives the Jinn out of her. At least, that's what everyone thinks. Later, a news report confirms what happened. Several bodies were found at the mosque, including a man with a broken neck, while Irma and Wulan were discovered dead elsewhere. Nisa survives, but she's left in the hospital suffering from an illness no one can explain. Sofia is found alive. Physically, she's completely unharmed, but now she has no family left to care for her. Then comes the final scene. Nisa wakes up in her hospital bed, still terrified. Sofia walks in, trying to comfort her. At first, it almost feels peaceful. Then the movie gives you one last surprise. The Jinn never truly left. It's still there, and this whole time, its real target was Nisa. Not Sofia, not Lang, Nisa. By the end, it almost feels like the spirit has become attached to Sofia herself, making it impossible to know whether she's finally free or whether this nightmare has only just begun. And that's where Sijjin ends. So, that's Sijjin, the Indonesian remake. And just to be clear, this is an official remake of the original film. So if you're expecting a completely different story, that's not really the point. Personally, I think part of what made the original so memorable was the timing. That style of horror felt genuinely fresh when it came out. The performances also feel incredibly natural, and the atmosphere is strong enough to give you chills whether you're watching in daylight or at 2 in the morning. The sound design is excellent, and the ritual scenes are genuinely unsettling. If I had to choose, I'd still give the edge to the original, but honestly, this remake absolutely stands on its own. And one thing I do think it improves is the storytelling. The plot is much easier to follow, while the original asks you to piece a lot more together yourself. As for why almost everyone dies, once the curse attached itself to Sofia, her entire bloodline became the target. Irma believed she was destroying Nisa's family, but in the end, she destroyed her own instead. Lang wasn't completely innocent either. He made choices that hurt the people closest to him, and he ended up paying a heavy price for them. Nisa and Sofia survive, mostly because they were never the ones who set any of this in motion. Although I definitely wouldn't say they're safe. The movie practically tells us from the beginning that the Jinn warned Irma exactly what would happen if she kept chasing Lang. She ignored the warning, and everything unfolded exactly the way it was predicted. As for Iskin, that's probably the biggest unanswered question. Maybe he died. Maybe he disappeared the moment he realized the ritual had gone horribly wrong. Honestly, I could see either interpretation working. But now I want to hear what you think. Did the twist catch you completely off guard before the ending? Or did you figure out that Sofia was the real target before the ending? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.